Hello everyone, welcome to a new module which deals with the filing of returns and assessment. So by now, I hope you are clear about the basic concepts of GST, the levy and collection of GST, how to determine the value of GST, the time of supply, the price of supply, etc. Also, what are the procedures for registration of GST? So now we will discuss what is GST returns, what are the different forms of GST returns, and which registered person needs to file which type of return or which form of return, and the different types of assessment. Okay, so talking about GST returns, we will learn what does a return means. So just think, what is a GST return? Or in terms of income tax, you have heard many people saying, I did not file my returns. So what is returns? GST returns are the tax return forms that are required to be filed up with the tax administrative authorities of India. So we know that GST is the single indirect tax which is levied on the supply of goods and services between different entities in India. So GST returns are in the form of a document which contains all the transactions, which includes the sale and purchases of goods and services that has taken place in a particular period of time, along with the tax amount collected and the tax amount paid. So all the individuals who are registered under GST Act are liable to furnish the returns. Okay, so even if there is no transactions taking place, if that particular person is a registered person, he is or she is liable to furnish GST returns or file GST returns. So we will talk about who should file returns and what is the requirement of return filing, why is it needed, and the types of different returns and the details involved in different returns. So basically, returns can be defined as a point of contact between a registered person and the government. So for a registered person, he has the duty to pay the tax, and at the same time, from the point of view of government, the government has the duty to grant input tax credit and also check the compliance of tax. So these two are the duties of the registered person and the government. So these two duties of each of these persons becomes the right of each of the other persons. That means if the registered person has the duty to pay the tax, the government has the right to collect the tax on supply. And if the government has the duty to grant ITC, then the registered person has the right to claim ITC or input tax credit. Okay. So these are the duties and rights of the registered person and the government. So these duties and rights will be explained, or these duties and rights of the government and the registered person to pay the tax, also to claim the ITC and to check the tax compliance, will be dealt in a GST return. Okay. So return filing is mandatory under GST. So as I mentioned, even if there is no transaction, you must file a nil return. So if you are a registered person, it is compulsory that you should file a GST return. So if you are not filing a return, or if you cannot file a return, if you do not have a file previous month, quarters return. So if you have not filed the GST return for the previous month, you cannot file a return for this month. And also, if you file a return for a time that is late than the required time, that means the late filing of GST will have a cascading effect, and also that will lead to heavy fines and penalty. So you should file the return as and when required by the authorities. So if you do not file, you will need to pay heavy fines and penalty. Okay. So every registered person has to file the returns in the prescribed manner and within the permitted time limit through online portal of GSTN, that is Goods and Services Tax Network. Okay, so this figure shows how GST returns needs to be filed, or what is the flow of GST returns. So is there any benefit if you file a GST return? There are some benefits. The first benefit is GST returns have been scientifically designed so that each and every transaction can be cross-checked from the details furnished at different stages. That means the purchases done by one person will be recorded as the sales of another person, or the purchases by a recipient will be recorded as the sales of a supplier. So it is practically impossible for a person to leave out even a single transaction from the GST network. Okay, so there is a tally between the purchases and the sales of different persons. Then the second important thing is, or benefit is, mode for transfer of information to tax administration under GST system. Okay, so the main purpose of furnishing a GST return is that the taxpayer can use this tax-paying system as one of the major modes of transfer of information to tax administration about their firm and daily business activities. So through this GST returns, a particular taxpayer or a registered person can inform the tax paying system or the authorities the details or information about their business activities and about their firm and all. So in a GST return, they furnish details about the transactions, that is the sale and purchase of goods and services, along with the tax collected and along with the tax paid to the government. Okay. Then now let's see what are the benefits of timely filing of return and what will be the consequence if the return is not filed during the required time. So if you file the return in the correct time, and that means the timely filing of return will help the government to monitor tax matters easily, and it will also help the businessmen to avoid unwanted legal steps and procedure complexities. And the timely filing also will ensure smooth flow of goods and services with fungibility of input tax credit up to the last point of supply. So it will ensure input tax credit. And if you do not file a GST return in the correct time or during the required time, then you will have to face the disallowance of input tax credit. As a registered person, you will not get input tax credit, or you will not be able to claim input tax credit. And also there will be imposition of fine and penalty, interest, etc. If you fail to file a return in the correct time. Okay. So, for a registered person, the returns may show the tax liability, or it shows the tax paid for a given period, and also it acts as a proof for input tax credit claims and the tax complaints. And in the case of a government, the returns may track the transactions in the economy. It will be easy for the government to track the transactions in the economy. Then the government can check complaints of tax. Also, the government can check correctness of tax payment. That means tax payment as well as the input tax credit claim. It also helps the government to carry out the audit process very smoothly. And also, this returns act as inputs for policy decisions. That means changes in the policies can be made using this returns as a document for discussion, okay, or as a proof for discussion. So GST returns always act as a point of contact between a registered person and a government, okay. So these are the different types of GST returns that need to be filed by different category of persons. So for a normal registered person, he needs to file some different type of GST returns, and the GST returns filed by an e-commerce operator is different. A GST return filed by a person who has opted for composition scheme, that also may be different. So according to the different category of persons, the type of GST returns also varies. So as a whole, these are the GST returns. GSTR means GST returns to be filed by a different category of persons. So in the next video, we will discuss which category of persons need to file which type of GST returns. So here we have GSTR 1 to 11 and GSTR 1A, 2A, 4A, 6A, 7A, 9A, 9B, etc. So we will discuss which category of persons will have to file which type of GST returns in the next videos to come. So I hope this introductory video about GST returns and the filing of GST returns, which includes the requirement of GST returns filing, is clear for you. Go through the video again and try to understand all the basic ideas behind GST returns. Thank you.